You won't get a big job, Jane, unless you take 10 years off your CV and get a facelift. When have I ever listened to that bullshit?
Jane, thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to speak to you about your career journey and everything that you've accomplished along the way. So you started work in advertising agencies when you were 19.
I was actually 20.
You were 20?
Literally just turned 20. I think I was 20 in 4 weeks.
Amazing. Well, 20. And you've been changing the game ever since with some incredible new innovative campaigns that you've created along the way. But not just within your creativity for amazing clients, but also with your activism for midlife women, which we're going to talk about. But in your 50s, you suddenly started to feel unemployable and you lost hope in our industry. So you set up the Uninvisibility project. So can you tell me a bit more about that period of your life and what you did at that point and what you've been doing since then?
I didn't feel unemployable. I was unemployable.
Okay.
There was no question about it. I had an incredibly successful advertising career. I'd taken a couple of years. I'd come back to the UK from Australia. I'd taken a couple of years off to go to the National Film and Television School to study screenwriting, which again was something that I thought was adding to my experience. Then in 2015, a fact came out that only 3% of the world's creative directors were female. So I was like, probably time to get back in. So I stuck my hand up very, very loudly. Now, this is something that I take advantage of to this day, but at this time it did not work to my advantage, is men do not follow women on social media. So practically every woman in the advertising industry knew who I was, what I'd done, and was like, Jane's sticking a hand up, good on her. I did actually a blog, which was all the things that I'd been told I couldn't do in my career, and then how I got around it. And then the final one was, you won't get a big job, Jane, unless you take 10 years off your CV and get a facelift. And it was like, and then the last one was, when have I ever listened to that bullshit? And so Cindy Gallop got hold of this. She was like, I'm sharing the shit out of this. She put it all over social media. But more than that, she sent an email to every head of creative around London and said, you need to see this woman. And I saw 3 people, one of whom was a woman that I'd actually started the same year as. We'd known each other forever. And she was like, why the hell do you want to get back into this industry, Jane? It's bloody awful.
Oh, no. Oh, really?
She was having a particularly bad day.
Okay.
But, it was like, that was the reaction there. Another was the woman at Cannes who was like, Jane, we're going to put you on a jury. And I'm like, you can't. I haven't actually won a Cannes. And then the last one was a very groovy head of an agency who turned around and said, Jane, I'd give you a job, but you'd end up as the old woman at the back of the creative department doing the shit that nobody else wants. And he'd come from Cindy Gallop, and he had the nerve to say that to my face.
Wow.
So it was really, really quite incredible and really very shocking for me, because throughout my whole life, no matter what had happened in my life, I'd always been able to rely on my talent. So to find a point in my life where, hold on a minute, my talent's not going to save me, it was like, what the hell? What the hell am I going to do?
Yeah.
So I think it was January 2019, I woke up one morning and I put out a tweet, which was, are there actually any women over the age of 50 creating ads in London? It was retweeted 64 times with comments like, hen's teeth and unicorn tears are going to be easier to find. But I managed to get some names, and I went and met these women, and I sat down and I talked to them, and they were so much more interesting than advertising. I mean, they were just fascinating women. So I decided, I thought I was setting up a sort of Humans of New York type thing where I'd find an amazing midlife woman, take a great photograph of her, tell her story. So over the next 40 days and 40 nights, I found 15 women, took their photographs, wrote their stories, built a website, created a social media campaign, got a bit of PR, and we launched on International Women's Day 2019.
Nice.
And we had 2 million hits on the hashtag in the first 2 weeks. It was really, like, the reaction to it was incredible. Then the emails started coming in. And it was like, I used to be a PR whiz, now I'm driving a bus. I was a VR director for the BBC, now I'm wiping the ass of an Alzheimer's patient. I was one of the world's first VJs, I'm now applying for jobs as a hotel maid. And it just became apparent that there was this epidemic of unemployment for midlife women. And my business partner, Jackie, even when we met, I was sort of telling her the problem and what was going on. And she just all of a sudden went, hold on a minute. I got made redundant at 45. and Jane got made redundant. And it's almost like we all put the dots together and we realised that not only were we losing our jobs, we were expecting to lose our jobs. We were expecting that in the next round of redundancies, we were going to go. I did a call with the women of Facebook, and one of the women afterwards, she said, "I didn't want to say anything on the call, Jane." She said, "But I work with teenagers." She said, "I'm 48 years old, and I think it's time for me to go. I'm starting to look at where I need to go because I'm so lonely."
That's terrible.
And it was like that. So the women that were still in jobs were like, "Well, I'm so lonely. I'm the only one left. I'm the last one standing."
Yeah.
And it has been very much the last one standing. So we started up Visible Start. Mark Reed made a little bit of a faux pas during lockdown, where he basically was being interviewed about TV,
Yeah.
but it was taken out of context that he basically boasted that most of his staff were under the age of 40 and nobody harked back to the 80s, luckily, which caused a bit of a rucka.
Yes,
The staff were not very happy about it. Twitter was a storm. I believe the share price even dropped because of it. And I spent the whole week going, "Mark Reed, we need to speak. Mark Reed, we need to speak." And actually, on the Friday, I was doing an event after Martin Sorrell, and I'm like, everybody's going to stay, see at least the first 5 minutes of me after Martin Sorrell. So, Mark Reed, we need to speak.
Yeah.
And to his credit, on Saturday morning, I got an email saying, "I will call you at 2 p.m. And the call started with him, "I was taken out of context, it's blah, 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 blah."
Yeah.
I went, "I know, it's terrible, isn't it?" And I was like, "I've got a solution for you." He got to the end of the call and it was like, that was not the call I was expecting. I really didn't expect a solution to that. And I basically told him something that Martin Sorrell had said 3 weeks prior, which was actually worse than what Mark Reed had said.
Right.
Which he was like, "All of our staff are 25 and under because nobody understands digital analytics or programmatic. So we just take them from the best schools and we train them." And so I said to Mark Reed, I said, "Well, the best school's the school of life. Why don't we train midlife women in doing this?"
Nice.
By Monday afternoon, there was a proposal on his desk. It was signed off by the Friday, and we're now running our 4th course.
That's amazing. It's such a powerful story already, hearing the journey that you've been through. At what age, is there a specific age then at which you feel you've seen people become invisible in their careers? Is it late 40s?
It's 45.
45.
For women, it's and again, one of the reasons why we classify midlife as 45 to 70 is we both basically say it's the end of fertility to the end of your career.
Wow.
And so, people nobody seems to have this perception. They haven't got the message yet that we're all going to be living to 100.
Yeah.
And, we are going to have to be working until we're 70. And if we don't do something about the generation now, and again, this is something that people don't realize, 1975 was when equal opportunity legislation came in. So that was the first time women had the right to a career and could keep a career after marriage. And so, and a 70-year-old woman today would have been 21 at the time. So we are just seeing the first ever generation of women going through a career path. And we are telling you it does not exist unless you're at the top of the tree or run your own business or are in a, sort of a caring role, a nursing role, or, sort of an admin role. But there is no career path for you past 45 currently. There was a report came out today of just how few women there are in marketing over the age of 45. And they blame it on motherhood, but it's not motherhood. It's gendered ageism. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it happens to all of us. And again, for women of our generation, many of us had to make a choice. Do you want a career or family? So when you see the ones that made the choice of career losing their career at 45 or 50, that's devastating because it was like,
Absolutely.
Wow, you made that choice and even that hasn't protected you. So it's gendered ageism, which is baked into society. And again, we're only seeing the first women complete the cycle. And we're basically saying we need to completely redesign careers. And we need to redesign them for a woman's biology. And men are kind of, just come along for the ride, men. Seriously, you will have a much better time of it, because at the moment it's a trajectory from top to bottom.
Yeah.
And everybody falls off the ladder to the top, and, the last
Yeah.
ones standing are the old white guys at the moment. Now, if we start looking that we're going to be working from 25 to 70, it's like we can't be working at full pelt. We can't be going to the top. Now, why don't we start building plateaus? Why don't we start allowing people to plateau their careers? So you actually start designing your career from the very beginning. I mean, if I went back now, I would say I'd take every 7th year off.
Oh, that's an interesting concept.
I would take, if I was designing my career now, I would go and work somewhere for 7 years, then I'd take a year off, go do whatever it is, that whether that's having a family, even for even both of my children, it was like I didn't take time off to have the children.
Yeah.
But, if I'd taken a year off when they were 9 and 7, that would have been amazing.
Yeah, I love that as a concept, because it's so fiercely competitive, especially in the creative fields, that I think people struggle to take time off even just throughout the week, let alone allow themselves a bit of time and space to have a career pause. Or
I think everybody's living in too much fear at the moment. In this world where it's going so quickly now, we've got to take risks. We've got to get out there and shout, make
Yeah.
waves, and sort of, we've all got the experience to know not to cross the line too far. But we can usually hit communications on the line.
Yeah.
But explain that to a bloody lawyer.
I mean, bravery is a wonderful creative principle to have, and something that I love very much. What other behaviors or principles do you feel people should have, no matter their age, to kind of survive in the creative industry now?
Again, I think there's sort of being kind to yourself as well. I know so many people that have not wanted the big career. They've just loved what they're doing. And they should be allowed to carry on doing that. It's not seen as a lack of ambition for not wanting to be the top of the tree. It's like, I know so many people, I just love designing. I don't need to manage a team. I just want to carry on doing my work and doing my work to my best of ability. So again, everything at the moment is designed around, climbing the corporate ladder. Why can't people get to a level and stay there and be quite happy? And, and if they are at that level, then increase their skills, get them better at it, get them training younger people so that they learn the skills as well. Because again, I look at, things that are happening in design skills, and I think we spoke the other day about AI. My daughter was like, she came to me, was going, I want to do a poster for this event that I'm doing. And I said, well, what do you want? I'll get on Midjourney. What do you want? Let me know. And she was like, I don't know, something summary. And I was like, she had to go through looking at pictures to see what it was that she wanted. Whereas I come from the place of, okay, what are we going to create today?
I almost get the sense that you are more open-minded then, in terms of your way you source creative output and the tools you use, than younger people right now, because they have these set new tech, obviously, to rely on. That's really exciting. But would you say actually that your generation are a little more creatively broad?
I think so, because we've seen it all come in. So we've seen it. We learn. I mean, I learned doing type on tracing paper, every fucking letter. It was like hell, excuse my French. But honestly, I mean, I can still have nightmares about, setting type on tracing paper. And then we'd go from the tracing paper to a finished artist that would cut it all with scalpels and paste it down on boards. So we saw computers coming in with everybody going, oh, I'm not going to be as good at typography. I'll never do that. And it was like, it did get as good as typography. In fact, it actually got better. It improved typography.
Yeah.
Then Photoshop came in. I remember you couldn't put more than 10 points on a Photoshop document. Your whole computer would crash.
Mine does that anyway.
So Photoshop, everybody when it came in was like, oh, it's going to take over and we're never going to know what's real ever again. And so we've just heard all of these arguments over and over and over again. And I think the thing is that when you've gone from analog to digital, you've still got all the analog skills, so you see how it got there. So it's so easy to just look at them as tools. Whereas, sort of at the moment, everybody's, oh, AI is going to ruin everything. And I'm going, I'm sorry, but as an art director, instead of doing a little sketch of something I can't fucking afford to make, I can't even afford the model, I can't shoot that. And I can turn any image I want inside my head into something that is as close as I can get to like a Vogue photograph.
Yeah.
And this is the worst it's ever going to be, so it's going to get better and better and better. I just look at that and go, I think that's absolutely incredible. When I can then start to train the machines on like my art. So, I trained the machines on my painting. I can now paint anybody in my style because the machines learn from me.
It's incredible. And I love that you have so embraced that tech that everyone is a little bit afraid of at the moment, to be honest. And having that resilience and you've ridden those waves of tech before, so you're very adaptable. What other elements or behaviours does your generation have that's really important to creativity?
I think going back, first of all, is being able to imagine something out of nothing. I really do think that is the most important thing. And I think that's the thing that's been lost with modern creativity. And so I actually think AI gives us a really great opportunity to go back. So I'd say to anybody that's designing here at the moment is go and think of what is the image that you've always, always, always wanted to see? It was like, and again, it was like, there was a Jean Galliano dress. And I remember this shot in Vogue, and it was like this yellow dress made out of feathers, and it was just stunning. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I want an Italian room and by a window. And you look at the photograph, and it's just stunning.
Yeah.
And so, again, Warren Brown, who's a really top art director and creative director in Australia, started out at BPH here. He basically used to say the one with the most reference wins. And very much for art directors, because again, in the times before computers, who had the most books, the most posters, who could, who had the most inside their brain was the one who won. And so, again, I think that this is, we are the ones with the most reference. It was like, we know artists that you've never heard of. One really very good friend of mine who completely missed the last revolution. She's the only art director I know that actually went, I'm not learning computers.
Okay.
And survived, which to this day, I don't know how she
Fair
did.
play.
But I just said to her, I said, well, I'm sorry, you're not getting out of this one, darling.
Yeah.
Because, and she told me, she said, I went to, the Royal College of Art, the summer exhibition with some young people, and they were all absolutely amazed at how much I knew. And she said, I sort of came away from there going, oh, yes, I probably do know a lot about art, don't I? And so I'm like, okay, so you should be in there, talking about doing something in the style of this, or in the, use that knowledge to actually create something new. Because again, one of the things that people are saying about AI is it's just generating the same bloody images over and over again. That's because people are lazy in what they prompt and aren't going, oh, let me see if I can break this. And, again, we grew up with, play with things and break them.
Yeah.
So it was like, well, let's play around and break some stuff.
I love that as an attitude, and playfulness in design is I think a hot topic at the moment and super, super important. So there are some principles and behaviours that are that go beyond age, that are basic creative things that people could have. But we want to talk today about the multi-generational design team and the collaboration between emerging creatives and people with more skin in the game. How do you think that a intergenerational team is beneficial to creativity?
I think it's absolutely essential. There is a youthful exuberance and, ignorance is bliss to the perils of the world. So I think, young people really do sort of bring that sort of bravado. However, what I do find is that they're usually sort of swamped by realists and lawyers and, sort of, now, if we could have multi-generational teams that are, okay, that's a really brave idea you've got there. All right, I'm the big one. I've got the shoulders. All right, let me go and see if I can actually get this sold for you. Again, also, anybody that's having a problem in the workplace, was like, all right, instead of crying in the bathrooms, what are you crying about? All right, I'll go and speak to management because,
Yeah.
again, one of the things that comes post-menopause, and people don't talk about post-menopause, is that we have zero fucks left to give.
I
Absolutely.
can't wait.
Absolutely zero fucks. So, if we see something going wrong in a place,
Yeah.
we will actually go and stand. We've always stood up for each other. That's how we all survived when we were the first women in the departments and, the first women at the start of careers, was we ganged together and we helped each other. And I think that's something that's been lost. I think, there's people with imposter syndrome. It was like, I remember going to see my therapist many, many years ago, and he was talking about imposter syndrome. But that was all the white guys that had got to the top that were like, I don't belong here. I didn't do anything to get here. It was like, and somehow that has been translated into every woman's experience. And it was
Yeah.
like, no, those guys really were imposters. They got there because, they just were the lucky one. It was like, but all of you damn well deserve to be where you are. So, and this new invented imposter syndrome, it was like, no, you're not the imposter. But obviously the environment that you're in is not conducive to female presence.
Clearly, having a career and being in that midlife stage is a really difficult time, let alone if people want to change careers at that point. With longer life expectancy and therefore longer career span, we are able to flex our career a little bit more. And the design and creative industries claim to love having a diverse workforce that have worked in different industries and bring these different life experiences. Do you think it is possible to move into creative from a different industry at 45? Is that even possible?
No. No, I don't think it is. At the moment, and I say, and I say this after having run the course, is the guardians are too strong. The executive creative directors, the design directors are too strong and too powerful. And if I can't get in, then I don't think anybody can. I would say to any creative woman over the age of 45, you will be banging your head against a brick wall trying to break back in, or break in the first place, into a very established hierarchical design and advertising departments. However, they're dying. They're not going to go fast enough. I mean, they can't go fast enough for the way that the world is going and turning. So, keep ahead. Start creating your own stuff. Start creating your own economy.
Create your own destiny. I like
Create your
that.
own destiny, yeah.
I read today that 17% of workers in the UK don't know how to even approach colleagues of different generations. They're not comfortable doing that. Do you think that people are scared of midlife women for some reason?
Do you know what I've found from all of the women that we've had employed? They're freaking rock stars. Everybody loves them. And again, this is one of the reasons why WPP keep on doing the course over and over again, is because Karen Blackett said, we are getting rock stars out of this. And for younger women, they've never had any role models ahead of them.
Yeah.
And again, the role models for women are also freaking perfect. And, so to actually have a group of women with zero fucks left to give and who are strident and confident and still absolutely full of life, I think it's just because you haven't seen us, because you haven't worked with us, you haven't been around us. Again, it was like when I started the project, I went and saw a creative in an agency and she was broken. I was so sad. She started a few years after me. And she was like, I was so bullied at my last agency. It was like, my psychiatrist is like, I really have to deal with this because I'm not going to get on with my life unless I get on with it.
Gosh.
And, and I took a photo and I told her story. And then like a week later, she said, somebody asked me to speak. And she said, I went and spoke. And everybody was really interested in what I had to say. And I really didn't, it was almost like she was like, thank you for allowing me to give permission to use my voice. And then when I start to use my voice, we're finding younger women are going, that's amazing. That's what I wanted to know. That's what I wanted to hear. That's what I wanted to see.
Yeah.
And it was like, you're fascinating. And so, again, I think younger women look at older women, not in what do you look like, but like, wow, have you done that? Is that how you achieved in life? Is this what you've done? Wow, you've got 2 daughters and you've done this and you've done that. And so they look at you as a whole. And I think when you look at any midlife woman, there's something fascinating. I don't
Yeah.
think I've met a midlife woman that there isn't something fascinating about her.
I feel it's a confidence that radiates a bit into what midlife women do. I mean, I'm very lucky having worked in agencies where I do have female leaders to look up to, and that meant a huge amount to me. And I think it is a confidence that comes with life experience and comes with being in that role. It gives
It's a
you someone to really
confidence
look
that
up
can
to.
easily be lost, though, as
Mm.
well. So again, one of the things about menopause, I think, you keep on hearing me sort of menopause. The reason why I'm like this is because I sort of said this and I wrote it in our book, Invisible to Invaluable, was if all we talk about is menopause, then we're going to create a new stereotype of mad, crazy, sweaty ladies, which is actually going to make our problems worse.
Yes.
And, that's, I told you, I wrote that in 2020, told you. It was like, and, the fact is 60% of women go through menopause with very, very few or minimal symptoms. And, most women go through it without it affecting them. 20% go through. I mean, I know so many women that they feel guilty because they went through menopause and didn't realize it.
No way.
And it was like,
I didn't know that was a thing.
You shouldn't be able to feel guilty. Yeah, they just go, hold a minute, I got to like 60 and was like, did that happen? Did I go through it? Have I been through it? I mean, honestly, I know so many women that are like that. But, and I sort of say, was my lack of confidence in my mid-50s, was that due to menopause? Or was that due to gendered ageism and society's attitude? And I go, I'm sorry, I don't think it was menopause. It was like, for the first time in my life, I couldn't, it was gendered ageism was what dropped the confidence. It wasn't some sort of biological thing. It was real. It was real in the world. And so again, I think, a lot of the problems are all being wrapped up. Oh, if we all just fix menopause, we're going to fix everything for midlife women. And it was like, well, first of all, what are you going to do about the first generation of women that have fallen off the cliff? Are you going to get those back, or are we just going to let them retire in poverty? It was like, I think we've made such an impact now that it's no longer normal for a woman to lose her job at 45. And certainly now there are a lot of things in place to bring with. There's a lot more talk about it. It was like, 5 years ago, nobody was talking about it. There's a lot more talk about it now. But again, equal opportunity came out when I was doing my options. So I was the first generation of girls that could actually choose what career they were going to have. And most of them had already chosen that they were going to be a nurse or a teacher. I said, so in my year, probably about 10, maybe 15 of us, when we're going to go and have a career. Oh, you're the bitches that ruined everything. Now, if you consider that 10 years after that, if 10 or 15 women out of a year were going and getting a job, but 10 years later, every single woman in those years was going to get a job. So now what we're seeing is the first group of 45 where every woman would go out and have a career. So we're seeing this sort of like mass, and this is why you're sort of seeing all the menopause stuff, because these women are all of a sudden going through perimenopause.
Yeah.
So it was like you're going to get this massive push because we are seeing the first wall of women coming through now.
Yeah.
So, but you've got to go back for the ones that have been lost, because they're the ones that fought for everything. We had no childcare. We had no sexual harassment legislation. I mean, the first 10 years of our career, we were still fighting everything.
I mean, we're riding the wave, like you say, we're really at the frontier of this now. And I love the work that you're doing to be an advocate for midlife women. And clearly you're an inspiration, but you must have been inspired along the way. So let's end on a bit of wisdom. What piece of advice or wisdom have you had from someone of a different generation that you've really taken forwards?
It was growing up as a teenager. My next door neighbour was the only black woman in town. I came from Camberley in Surrey. It was frightfully posh. They had Sandhurst there. And she was married to a little professor, Welsh professor, and they had two children. And one of her children came home from school one day, and they'd done portraits for a book. And she just looked at him and was like, "Why have you painted your skin pink?" And he was like, because it's for a book. Books only have white people in them. And she was absolutely shocked that her son had drawn himself as a white person because
Wow.
that's what books were. Instead of writing a book, she set up a publishing company. So Verna Wilkins, she set up Tamarin Publishing in 1987. And she basically was like, if you don't like something in the world, change it. If you see something that's missing, fill the gap. And it was like, don't, just feel as though you're doing something. Go do something. Instead of moaning about something, go fix it. Go find a way around it, And, that's she's stuck with me since I was a teenager, and she's with me all the time. It's like, all right, I don't like this. Let's go change that. I don't like this. Let's go change that. There has never been a perfect time in your career. And that's either been an excuse or, again, it's perceptions of women. It was like, well, we can't possibly have a 35-year-old female creative director because she's going to go off and have kids. It was like, that can't be done.
Which is it? Because it's such a competitive field. We celebrate now female creative directors who are 35. I know a couple and they're wonderful and I'm so proud of them. So what is the perfect age to do anything? There's no winning, is there?
There is no winning. And again, I sort of say to younger women, we've got to design these longer careers with plateaus in them. Finding this balance of, to me, my children are my greatest ever creative project. There is no creative project ever on this planet that I have done that is more important than those two kids.
Absolutely.
So, but that doesn't take away from my other creative projects. It doesn't take away from my creativity. But it was like, if you want me at 100%, Jane post-menopause is the one to get. Because, again, everybody talks about menopause. They don't talk about what comes afterwards. And, the rise in confidence that you get a boost of testosterone. I mean, I remember the day my menopause happened, which is one day. Menopause is one day. So everything prior to it is perimenopause.
Mm-hmm.
And it's when you haven't had a period for 1 year. And I remember that day, like I didn't even have to look it up in the diary. I knew exactly what the day was. And I woke up and I went, holy shit, this is how confident David Droga felt at 25.
Wow.
And that sort of stuck with me ever since. It's like you don't know what you've got until it's gone. And you don't realize just how much of an impact all of those baby-making chemicals have on your body. And, I remember somebody going, oh, you must feel like a teenager again. I went, I feel more than a teenager. I feel like a 10-year-old again. Without any of those chemicals in my body, it was like anything's possible. It actually feels like it's me, 100% me again. And again, it was like, what a power source. We should be bringing these power sources back in of women that are like, oh, wow, okay, I can take on the world now. I've got the time, I've got the space, I've got the experience, I've got the wisdom.
I can tell you're a creative force of nature, Jane, because no one has ever made me feel like looking forward to the menopause before. That's incredible. Thank you so much. I really appreciate all of your insight and stories that you've shared today and bring on the wave of midlife women in creativity. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.